Okay, so it started. Okay, so this is the agenda for today, and I guess if you guys have read the link that I have sent, it has all this information. So just 1 second, I need to. Okay, so in the next 1 hour or little bit over it, we are trying to create an IAM user using a Boto3 library. So basically, we are going to automate this entire process. Okay. So first thing is, if you think about IAM, what is the first thing which is coming into your mind, or what is exactly the functionality which IAM provide? I will try to make this session interactive, so I will ask you guys all these sort of questions. So if anyone wants to talk about IAM, like what exactly you think of IAM?
Yeah, Prashant, Yogendra here. Thanks for asking us. For me, like I am in one sentence, it's mainly of user creation and maintenance, where you will manage all your users across the platform in the AWS.
Yeah, I mean that's
Thank you.
that's a really good answer. So yeah, so basically IAM we all know stands for Identity and Access Management. Access Management, and it is the way through which you can access all the other AWS resources and in a secure manner. So the main problem it is trying to solve is one is called authentication, and second one is called authorization. Now, in the simplest of terms, the authentication means how you are able to log in. So, for example, in case of your laptop, you use your username and a password to able to log into the system. Similarly, I am providing that service to you. Authorization means once a user log into the system, how much access he has. Do he has the admin access or a normal user access? So if we translate in terms of AWS, so let's say I am creating a user who only have access to EC2. So that is what the authorization means. Okay. So if okay, let's start this session in a manner like first we try to create a user via the AWS console, and then we will see how to replicate it with the help of a Boto3. So if you go to the AWS Management Console and search for IAM, okay, go to Users tab, click on Add User. You can give it a username, for example, AWS IAM user. Okay. Uh, do you want to provide the AWS Management Console access? That means the console that through which we have logged in. Do you want to provide it? Just for timing, let's say we don't want to provide it. Click on Next. Then then it is checking that if we want to add this user as a part of any group. Group is basically a collection of IAM user, and simply we want to copy a permission or attach a policy. We are going to see each and every of these things when we are going to see the script part. Maybe not the group, but at least the policy. So click Next, and then we will review and create. Okay. So where is my? So basically, it asks you for like, let me do this. So if you need to create an IAM user, right? The first thing you need is the IAM username, right? You need to know like what is the username you want to provide it to your user. Second thing is we have seen it either it need to be attached to any group or we need to attach a policy or copy of permission. So just to for simplification purpose, we will say attached to a user attached policy. And finally, we are just reviewing all the configuration and everything. So that thing we are going to replicate it with the help of a Boto3 script. Okay, so just leave it from here. Okay. And whatever we have done through the console, we are going to do it with the help of a Boto3 library. So first thing we need to do before using any of this library is like we need to import it. And before I show you that part, let me show you one thing. Our final goal is to create a script like this. So basically, when I execute the script at the end of 1 hour, you should have this. You can pass a username information, the password information. You can attach the policy or even a file name. So in the file name, you should have the like a bunch of users which you want to create it. So that you can pass it to the script, and the script should be able to create those users for you. Just a word of caution, like I do not recommend creating like more than 10 user with the into the IAM, or 10 or 20 user or 100 user, because in case if you have this kind of a requirement, then you should go with some kind of federated identity. So we will talk about it later, but this is just the gist of it. Okay. So first thing is, before uh, creating the script, or before start using that script, the first thing which we need to do is to import the Boto3 library. Do anyone wants to talk about what exactly the Boto3 library is, or what exactly it do? I will pause here for a second.
So you can explain what Auto is.
It will help you to connect with AWS resources.
Yes. Yeah,
This
that's
is
the
one more.
simplest of definition. And yeah, so basically, if you want to connect to the AWS resources via the automation, that is where the Boto3 library comes into play. So like any other Python module, if you want to use it, you first need to import into your code. So that's what I am doing it over here. And the way you can use the Boto or install the Boto3 library is simply the pip3 command. So pip3 install Boto3. Okay. The next thing is, once we have this Boto3 library available for us, we need to create a client session. So let me show you what do I mean by that. Okay, 1 second. I have someone whom I need to add. Okay. IAM is equal to Boto3 dot client dot IAM. So let me go back to the AWS console and let me explain it to you what does this mean. IAM equal to Boto3 dot client dot IAM. And please pause me if you think it's going too basic, but I just, because this is a first session, so I want to explain it from the scratch. So if you look at here, there are two parts of this whole equation. The first thing is, before using your AWS console, you need to log into that AWS console. So that's why I have done. I have already logged into this AWS console. Let me show you. So before using it, I need to log in, right? And that part is called a session creation. And that session creation is happening here with the help of something called AWS configure. So basically, this is how you will be able to interact with it. I will show you in the keys part how to generate these keys and interact with it. The second part is, once I logged into this AWS console, I need to select a particular service. So that can be your EC2 or Lambda or IAM. But in this case, it is IAM, right? So that is what I am doing it. So the first part, the login to the AWS console, that is already been done with the help of this AWS configure. And I already have all these keys and everything configured to interact with the AWS. Now to connect to a particular resource, I need to create this kind of a session. And that's what I'm doing it over here. IAM equal to boto3.client is equal in the service name, it's IAM. Similarly, if you need to create it for EC2, EC2 equal to boto3.client. If you still have any doubt regarding what exactly this means, as a part of a prerequisite for this session, I shared my YouTube playlist for Boto3, where I have explained all these concepts in depth. So just give it a try. Now the next part of this equation is, we have logged into IAM, we have all this information. The next thing is, we need to create a user, right? So how to create a user using a Boto3? So for that purpose, let me go here. and you need to search for something called Python 423. Go to this 423 documentation, go to available services and search for IAM. Okay. And if you remember, we have created 423 client. So there are two ways you can set up a session with a particular resource. One is called boto3.resource, and second way is called boto3.client. Resource is an older way to establish a session with a particular resource. The new way is called client. And if you look at all the new services which is coming to the AWS, they all support client. The resource has been supported by just a mayor of services. So I encourage you to use client to establish a session. Okay. Now, once I reached here, you will see that this IAM client support a varieties of method. You can see all the way like all these methods. So our ask is to create a user. Okay. So for that purpose, if you go through this list and look for something called create user. Okay. And look at the syntax of that. So basically, by the client and calling this method create user, we can define all these parameters like path, username, permission boundaries, tags, and everything. Okay. So whatever we have done earlier, like when we go to this user tab, click on add user and username and all this information, we are doing it with the help of this client create user method. So let's use it in our code. So basically we have this, right? So hash this out. This. And just for simplicity, I will say IAM dot. And the reason for that, because I use this IAM variable. If I use the client variable, I use this client over here and create underscore user. And then I will use username. Yes. And I will replace it with the username. So I will say, I want to create a user with the name AWS user. Okay. So this is the first time I'm showing you like how to do that. Any doubts so far before I move further? Because this is the base on the top of which we are going to create all the other resources. Any confusion here? Any doubt? Okay, I will take it as a yes. And I don't want to confuse you guys at this point of time by showing you all these like path and permission boundary. So let's stick to our first thing. Like the way we are going to approach to this script is like we are going to start with the bare minimum. We will first at least prove the point that we are able to create. So for example, in your organization, you have given a task that you need to automate the process of IAM user creation. So here we are seeing the bare bone minimum thing. Okay, we will be able to automate it. We are doing it in a bad manner because we are hard coding all these values. But let's see if that works. And then we will proceed how to enhance the script. So Python 3, and it's called creating IAM user. Okay. Something happened, but we don't know what it is. But the execution of a script returned a zero exit status, which means everything looks good. But just to prove it, we have created this AWS user. Let's go back to the AWS Management Console, refresh it, and you will see we will be able to create this user, right? Now, my question to you guys, if I execute this script again, what is going to happen? How many of you think that I will be able to create this user again? Or how many of you guys think that, okay, this script is going to fail? I will pause here.
Yeah, it's going to fail because the user already accepts in the account.
Yes, absolutely. So let's try to execute the script again and see. Obviously, right? You will see an exception over here, which is called Botocore. So basically, Boto3 is built on top of a library called Botocore. And here it shows you this exception. Okay, so let me show you one thing before I will proceed further. Okay, and this EM dot exceptions. PIR. See, this IAM particular client support a number of exceptions, and one which you have seen is called entity already exists exception. So you will see somewhere here, right? So there are a bunch of exception which you can call, which I'm going to show it in next few minutes. Invalid user type or user already exists. All these exceptions you can use in it in your code. For example, one which we are going to use is called no such entity exception. But remember that it supports all these n number of exceptions. I mean, with the passage of time and you while you are going to use all this script in your code in your work, you need to use these exceptions. So let me come out of this. So yeah, now we know that okay, if we try to recreate this user, it is going to throw the exception. So now my next question is how to handle this. So this is a question for you guys. What do you think? How can we enhance the script like so that if I will try to recreate this user, I will know that okay, I am not supposed to recreate it because this user already exists.
We can use try catch.
Sorry, we can use what?
Try catch, and in catch we can mention whatever message for the user we can.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Any other way?
We could do so. Yeah, I would do the try exception as well.
Mhm.
Other way is maybe check if the user exists using a if prompt, and that wouldn't be ideal, but that's another way to do it.
Exactly. So
Exists, then don't do anything. If not, then just create.
yes. So for that purpose, you guys are absolutely correct. Let me go back to this. So if you go back to this Voto 3 documentation, there is something called get underscore user. So this is what exactly this does. You guys are absolutely correct. We are going to use the try catch. But before that, at the IAM point of view, I can just go and see if the user already exists. So if you can read the its description, it's retrieve information about the IAM user, include this creation and all those things. So basically, I will first check in the script. Let me again copy paste it so that it will be much easier for me. Okay. So before creating this user, I will say IAM dot get underscore user, and then it accepts one parameter called username equal to this. So let me copy paste this guy. So as you guys have mentioned, before creating this user, I will see if this user already exists. And if this user already exists, don't try to create it. Let me execute the code again. Okay, it again failed. Anyone know why it has failed? Yeah, I am making all these error intentionally because I want to show you guys how to build the concept. Okay, I can show you the entire code up and running or the working code, but the idea is to show you how to build all these things from scratch.
So even if you are checking the users, right, you are not putting any condition because ultimately you are again trying to create the same user, right?
Yes.
Whether it exists or not.
Yeah. So that's what you have mentioned it earlier. We need to use try catch to catch these kind of exception. Okay. Guys, give me 1 minute. My dog is getting impatient. Just 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so that's where we are going to use the try catch exception, like to catch it before we will try to create this user. So Let me go there. So basically, what I will do, I will say try, right? And then indent it. And I will say try, except, sorry. Python, so I need to indent it. And this time, rather than, I will give try IAM exceptions. Exceptions. I will tell you what exactly I'm trying to do. And there's something called no such entity exception. So I showed you here, no such entity exception. Okay. Let me do this and then I will tell you what exactly I'm doing it over here. And otherwise, if it's not, then except exception SE. Okay. If you remember that when we are creating this user, it went past well, but we don't know what exactly is happening. So let's try to add the print statement to our code. So here I will say print with a string, okay, error, error, creating user, okay. And here I will say print user already exists. And here I will say user created successfully. Okay. So basically what exactly we are trying to do now, we are actually start building the code with, and we are catching some exceptions. So what we are trying to do, we are first trying to see if the user already exists. If it is, the code stop at this point, right? Otherwise, if that user does not exist, we will try to create this user. And this is something, I mean, I can itself, after this except block, I will add this and I should not need to do all this kind of exception. But this is just a good security measure or a good effective coding practice, that even if the user is created successfully after that, and if I have some other kind of exception, I will be able to catch it over here. So let me try to execute this code and then I will show you what exactly this means. So because this user already exists, if I try to execute the script, okay, I have some oh man, okay. This should come under here. Okay. So this time it does not throw any error, all these exceptions, sorry, not error, exception, because we are able to catch this exception, right? So here you see it says user already exists. So it looks much, much cleaner. Now let's try to create a user, for example, AWS user 1. Okay, try to create this user AWS user 1, and we will see what exactly now it will happen. So at least we are seeing some messages over here. Okay, user created successfully. We don't know what user it is, but at least it is saying this user created successfully. So we are heading into at least into the right direction. Any questions so far? Okay. So we are able to create a user. We have improved our code by adding this try catch block. Now, the next step of this is like, okay, let me put this question to you guys. What do you think, how can we enhance this code? What is the one thing, what is the first thing which you want to improve in this code by looking at this current condition?
Instead of manually passing it, we can pass the username using file.
Oh, yes, exactly. So basically here we are hard coding this value of AWS user. Isn't it good that we can pass this username by, okay, at this stage, let's say we want to pass this username by asking the user itself. So what we will do, we will use a function called input. So I will say username is equal to input. Please enter a username. And next few minutes, we are going to see that how we can improve it by using something called Argparse. Okay. So now, rather than hard coding this value, I can replace this with this variable called username. So basically, we are asking user, and we please enter a username, and we are storing this value into a variable, and that value I can pass it over here also. Username already exists. Similarly over here. And we have cached the exception, so let's add the exception also. So now you will see this code looks much, much better. We are not hard coding any of these values. Okay, let's try to execute the script again. Okay, username is not defined. Oh, sorry. I'm calling it at the end of the script. We should have asked it. Okay. Let me give it my name, Pilakera1. Okay. Now you see that earlier it said user created successfully. Now we are seeing user Pilakera1. At least I know which user has been created. So let's go to the AWS console and verify it. See, it's created that user Pilakera1. So far, we have added this, like we are asking the user, we have added a try catch block. What should be the next thing which I should do to enhance this code?
Attach a permissions policy to the user as it is created, as the user is being created.
Yes, I mean, that is the kind of an enhancement that we are going to do. What other thing you can think of at this stage? Just look at this code. How can we enhance it further?
Okay, so you mentioned about Argparse, so maybe import the Argparse module, and maybe just passing the username, we said we pass a flag for username, something like -u and followed by username.
Yeah, you're heading into a right direction, but just looking at this code, I don't want to add any new functionality to it. How can I improve it further?
Maybe we can wrap this functionality in a function.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what I want to hear. Yeah, Argparse, definitely we are going to do. But first, let's wrap it into a function so that we will make it as a modular. Okay. So what we can do, we can define a function called create IAM user. I can pass a username to it. And then let me indent this code. And before I'm going to call this function, so again, this is one of the good code, clean code security, clean code practice where we make it modularize with the help of function. So just see, let's verify if it's working or not. So it's created, right? So it's not going to change the functionality of the code, but basically we have modularized it to make it look much better so that if I need to call this function at any other place, I will be able to call it. Okay. So now let's go to the second part of this code where so far we are asking user to enter this username. Rather than asking the user to enter a username, we want to make it like the final script, which I have showed you earlier, that user should be able to like pass the username, password, or policy or file name on the command line. And for doing that, we have something, a module which is available, which is called Argparse, which is basically you can think it of like if you want to create a command line utility, then Argparse is the module for that. Okay. It has some syntax which will take some time to digest, but let me try my best to explain it to you. But one thing for sure that the main idea of this demo or this webinar is to show you how the Boto3 works, not to show you how the other Python things work. So if you have any doubt, please feel free to ping me, but I will try bare minimum to show you like how this whole thing works. So right now, our issue with this script or the functionality which we are trying to enhance, that we are asking user to enter a username. So rather than doing that, we will ask user to pass that username on the command line. Okay. And one more thing which we can improve in this script. Okay, let me copy paste this one, and then I will show you what exactly I mean. Because this is going to take a lot of time for me to type. So let me copy to this. And then call this function. Let me execute the script, and then I will show you what exactly I have done. So now if I execute the script, you will see that it is giving me the good uses. Okay. I can pass a username, and at the same time, it giving me all these help options, this descriptions, and all this information after adding that. So let me go back. Okay, sorry. So what I'm doing it over here, I'm importing this Argparse module. Okay. And then in the first line, I'm creating a parser out of it. Okay. So what exactly it means by that is that what this line is doing is creating an argument parser. And in the argument parser, I'm passing this description, creating an IAM user. So if you go back to here, it is printing it over here. So whatever you're going to like pass in that line, it is going to be input to your script. Then what argument I want to pass to that? In this case, it's a username. So basically, I want to create an IAM user, right? So I want to pass it to that particular argument. If you want to pass like password, so you need to add one more line. For example, password.add argument, the password. And then finally, in the last line, it parses those value and store into this variable called args. So now, rather than passing a username to your function, you are going to pass this args.username. That's the only difference you're going to it's going to make. But the advantage of doing that is now I will say p. So now I don't need to get the input from a user. I can just pass it into a command line. So basically, I mean, it's not going to make much of a difference, but it make your script a command line utility. And the reason I use in most of my script because it gives me all these beautiful help options. So I used heavily in my script, even in my workplace, I use this Argparse a lot. So I know it's a little bit confusing for the first timer. And like I mentioned, this session is not about like Argparser or any of the Python module, but more about how to connect to the using Boto3. So I will pause it here. I will pause here for a second and let me know if you have any question. Okay, so no question. Okay, so far, if you following along, you know that, okay, we have created this user, right? Any of these user, for example, let's say Pilakela1. One thing, we haven't attached any policy or permission to it. So basically this user is good for nothing. It will not be able to interact to any of the AWS resources. The second part of the equation, which we have talked about, one is called authentication, second called authorization. So this user has no control. First part is authentication. Nowhere in the script we have specified the password, right? So there is no way in the world that this user is able to log in. We know the username, but we don't know how to log into the AWS console. So that what we are going to do in this part, we are going to assign a password to it, and we are going to attach a policy. Okay. Any other thing you can think we can enhance in the script at this stage?
We can add to the group.
Yep, we can add it to the group also.
The password can be passed as a parameter as well.
Yes, obviously, we can pass it as a parameter also. And
Policies and permission boundary.
yeah, we can add permission boundary too. Any other thing? I mean, these are all some really good suggestions. Okay, let's try one by one. So first thing I will do is trying to add a password to it. And like hard coding the password also is not a good security practice. Also, I don't want to, I mean, I can pass it into a command line. Obviously, I will show you that functionality. But basically, I want to create a random password. And once the user, I will give that password to the user. But I will add a functionality that when the first time the user log into the AWS console, he or she must change his password, right? So let's see how this works. So rather than showing you the code part, let me show you how to create a random password. Okay. So let me go to the screen. Second 3. Okay. And there is a library called strings. I don't know how many of you guys have used it, but string string. And if you see the method which is supported by it, it supports a bunch of all these methods. So let me show you one by one. So for example, string.askGuy and letters. You see this one. So one thing like I guess you guys have already worked in any of the organization, and wherever you have worked, the password that you have got is a combination of like small this alphabets, small case, uppercase. It can be a combination of numbers. It will be a combination of numbers, string dot digits, right? And then I need some special characters. String dot. So my password can be a combination of this, and this. Okay. So let's see how I'm going to code this guy. So first thing, before using the string, I need to import it. And let me import one more library called secret. I will tell you why I'm doing it. Okay. And rather than wasting everyone time is just typing the code, let me copy paste it, and then I will show you what exactly I'm doing. So I am Photo 3. Let's put it in, because I'm using this inside this. Let's put it over here. Okay. Let me start here. Let me put 16 here. Okay. Okay. Let me show you what exactly this code is doing. So let me break down this code one by one. Okay. So far you know that if you call this string.askI.letter method, it gives you all this A to Z, uppercase and lowercase. A string digit give you 0 to 9, and string.punctuation will give you all these special characters. So let me do this chars.this, and I'm storing this into a variable called chars. Now chars contain all this information. Right? Then I have this. Let me start with a blank password, okay, or a variable. And so let me start with the 16. Password is equal to password plus. Oh no, I have imported secrets. Okay, this code is going to fail, but let me show you. Secrets. See, it gives me 16 character of this password, 16 character password. So basically what secret is going to do, it's randomly going to choose any of these character and it will generate a 16-digit password for you. Any question? Or did I went too fast? So that's what I'm doing in this code. I'm going to define a function called random letters, random password with a length of 16. This entirely depend upon your organization requirement. If your organization want a password to be like 20 characters in length, then we can define as a 20 over here. Then I define this char, like I showed you, which is a combination of all these. We started with a blank password. We whatever the length we have picked it, we are going to do it. And what secret is going to do is just going to return, pick our random values out of this ASCII digit and punctuation, and it is going. This function is going to return the password. And I will show you where exactly we are going to use this. And the password will be like this, the 16 characters. Okay. Now, so far in our code, we are just passing the username, right? Let's start now with the password. And we will say with a none. Okay, we are not passing any password to our code. Okay, I mean, we are not supplying any password to our code. Okay, and this we are going to see in this try catch exception block. Okay, so I will say if password is none, then my password is equal to, I will call that function which is returning the password. As simple as that. Okay, so basically if I am not supplying any password, then this password is been coming from this random password. Okay, so we are able to get this password, but where exactly we are going to use it? So let's go back here. Create user. And this is where the things start getting confusing. So almost like 5 or 6 years back, when I first time I wrote this code, I go through this documentation and this create user, and I see that it has all the other attributes or parameters, but nowhere I can specify the password, right? So I got confused, and then I researched it further, and I came to know there's something called create login profile. So if you go through this, basically this is where you can set up the password. And like I told you, it's a good security practice that once this password is being created, the first time when the user login, he or she must be able to change that password. So if you set this value of password reset required equal to true, the first time when the user login, he or she needs to change that password. So let's copy this. So far you have seen that, I mean, I'm not memorizing anything. We just need to know how to use the Boto3 documentation. And out of this, we will be able to get these value. So once this has been done, right, create user is been done, I need to call this method called IAM dot create login underscore profile. And that accept username. So I will pass the same value, username equal to username. Second thing which we need is a password. So password, this is caps. So password equal to, and in our case, the password is coming from this function, right? And we have stored it into this variable called password. And please make sure this password reset requires it set to be true. Now let's try to execute this code. Let's Okay, one thing which we need to do it over here, because we have added this functionality now, I need to add one more argument to my parser, because we are building this parser where we are going to call all these on the command line, and even to this guy, I need to pass it as a, I can do it like this, or I can do it just simply by a args.password. Hopefully there will be no typo mistake, and let's say Pilakera 3. And okay. So again, the password is being created, but one thing which we have missed over here is, okay, let me ask you guys, what do you think we have missed in this code? I know you guys are feeling
I
sleepy.
can publish password on the screen once user created.
Exactly. We have created the password, but we don't know what exactly the password is. So at least Ravi is paying attention. So basically, what we can do after creating this login profile, we can just print that password over here. So let me type it again, and I will say Pilakera 4. And this time it is even print the password to the screen. Any confusion so far before we move to the next part of the script?
Yeah, I didn't quite follow why we had to pass the password argument to the arg parser, because we are not asking the user to pass the password, right? That's the auto-generated password, correct?
Yeah, so that's why I'm checking it over here is, where is that? If password is none. But
Oh, okay.
there is an option, like even if you see at the script level, you can specify the password also.
I see. Okay, okay, got it. Yep, thank you.
So it's just an optional way. If you want, you can completely remove it out. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, right?
Thank you.
So yeah, so far we have done it. We have created the random password. We have created the user. We have assigned the password to it. Okay. The next part is we are going to assign a policy. Okay. And to assign a policy, I am going to follow the same pattern. I will say attach underscore policy. Let's start with something bare minimum. Like we have no policy attached to the user. And exactly the same pattern we are going to follow if attach underscore policy is none. Okay. Then again, we need to go back to the Boto3 documentation. Okay, go to here. And there is something called here, attach user policy. So only way you are going to learn about all these methods and everything when you're going to use it on a daily basis or in your code. And there's no way you can learn it, or there's no way I can show you or I can teach you how to use this method. Depending upon your requirement, you need to explore this. For example, when, like I told you, when the first time when I tried to create this use this create user method, I did not find any way to pass the password. So you guys basically need to explore it. And you need to say IAM dot attach user policy. Okay. And it accept username. So we will just pass user is equal to username, comma, and policy ARN. So let me show you. So let's say for this particular user, I just want it to give this user a S3 read-only policy. I mean, that's a default policy. If no policy, like the same way, if we are not assigning any policy to this user, by default, this user will got the S3 read-only policy. So that much level of permission that user has. So I will say policy S3 read-only access and policy ARN. Once again, this is completely optional, and you can again need to pass this argument. And in the code also, you need to pass it as a _policy is equal to args dot _policy. And attach policy is equal to none. If attach policy is none, and one thing we are again missing here, we are just going to print it over here. That S3, this policy, S3 read-only policy attached to the user, this guy. Let's try to execute this code again. Okay, so it says that this user has been created with this username and S3 read-only policy attached to it. Okay. Do one thing, because don't want anyone to hack my system, so let me delete these users at the same time. Okay, so we have, if you guys remember, we started with the bare bone minimum code where we are able to show it that we will be able to create a user. We checked it if this user exists. And at this point, we have a much better code where we can pass all these arguments to my code. Okay, so we have already made a lot of progress. One thing I want to show you guys, if you do not specify this option, your code is failing badly. Anyone know how to handle this? So if I use -h help, you are seeing all these beautiful options and everything. But if I do not specify it, throwing me an exception.
Yeah, so in Bash, what I would normally do is check the number of parameters that are passed. If they are not equal to X number, then print incorrect usage and, type script name -h for help.
Exactly. I mean, similar thing, you can do it over here. So let me show you. So here at Argparse level, so basically same thing I'm doing it over here. If we are not passing any argument to my script or to this to the script, then just print the parser help option and exit. So now after adding this, if I execute this code, what help?
I think it needs to be indented.
Yep. No, not this way. This way. Now we are able to handle that error also. So now the last piece of the puzzle. So far we are passing all this username manually, right? Either by the command line or anything. Isn't it will be good? So for example, if you have given a task like, okay, you want to create a 10 user, you don't want to pass all these users manually to the command line, right? Like ABC123, ABC2234. So basically what I want to do, I want to add an option called -- file name, where I have the list of the user. I will just pass it onto my script, and the script will be able to create those users. Okay. We are running short of time, so I will show you how to do that. I mean, maybe not by the coding part, but just to show you, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you have understand the code up to this point, it will be much easy for you to see how we can do it. So basically, if you go to the last part of this, here we are checking the file name. If any file name argument is passed, and that argument I'm going to add it over here. Okay. And if we are passing this like hyphen file name parameter, what it is going to do, we are just opening a file in the read-only mode and reading all these names one by one. And if this argument is passed, then after looping through that all the username, we are going to create this username while reading through the file one by one. Else, if that is not been passed, we are going to create a user from whatever been passed to the command line. So let me show you how this looks like. So for example, I will create a file called create_user. It can be any name, abc123xyz123. Let's say I want to create these two users, but I don't want to pass it one by one. And let me show you this final creating dot this one. I can just pass its file name option. Okay. And what's the file name I have? Create_user. So see, this time it reads from the file and it will be able to create this user for me. Once again, the sign of warning that if you have these n number of users, don't do it via the, I mean, I'm just throwing you one option, but basically you should have some kind of federated identity, maybe Active Directory or integration with Gmail or any other solution or Okta. So your system should be integrated with those solutions. Okay. So I will share the script with you guys. The recording should be available in like by the end of today. So that's the end of the session. Any question? I know we are right on time. Any question, any concept which you do not understand?
Prashant, is this available via GitHub, just so we could refer later on?
Yes, I'm going to share you guys in all the script via GitHub.
Thank you.
Still in my development branch, but I will merge it today.
Thank you.
So ideally, Prashant, I'm having one question. So the use case, like how usually it implemented. So like if we have like 10 users and out of that we have to give different policies to different users. So in that case, how we do that?
Yeah, in that case, you need to make some modification to the script. By default, the script will assume that you are just supplying one policy to the user. But Ravi, we can make some tweak and make the script more intelligent so that you can have handle those kind of situations. But to answer your question, this script will not be able to handle that condition. Basically, in those cases, I will suggest you to create a group. Just try it from your end. That group should have a permission lot, for example, one group for S3, one group for EC2, and attach all the user to that particular group. But just try to create it. If you are not able to do it, let me know. I will be able to help you out.
Sure. Or can we do this way, like a single user, we can pass multiple policies on a file, and then through that, those policies can get assigned to user?
Honestly, this script will not be able to handle that, but we can make some tweak to make it work.
Got you. Fine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Prashant.
Yeah,
This was really good. I really appreciate your efforts. And I mean, do you do these sessions more frequently, or I mean, are you having any plans so that maybe we can attend further sessions?
Yeah, this is the first session. I want to see like how many people are interested. I see some of the participation. This is fair enough for me to get started, but I mean, if there are only one or two people who's going to join, then obviously I'm not going to do these kind of session in future. But yeah, with this much participation, I'm going to do a next session in next Sunday, sorry. I will send you the details via the LinkedIn. But before that, I will give you some of the options that these are the things which, okay, for example, in the next session, I want to show you like EC2 or EBS or any other thing. So basically, it's up to you guys how many votes I will receive for the particular session. I will be able to do it in next Sunday. So yeah, so what's the short story is, yes, I will be able to do it, these kind of session in future.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Prashant. This was very helpful.
Yeah, sure, right.
Thank you, Prashant. Thanks all. Cheers.
Yeah.
This
Thank
is
you,
his
everyone.
GitHub link, guys, if you want to look for it. I found it in his LinkedIn. If he's still
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice week.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Prashant.
Thank you very much.
See you next Sunday.
Sure. Bye.
Bye.